What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another Detroit Lions video, of course, but this one is a little bit different. We got some NFL news today that cornerback Jack Jones was waived by the New England Patriots, and the question is, should the Lions be interested? So let's get it started. Welcome everybody to another video. Glad you guys are here. I could not nail that for some reason. And man, we are back with another Lions video on this Victory Monday, 7-2. Oh, it feels so darn good. If going into a couple divisional games, and this is where things are really fun. You have a game against Chicago, then a short week, you're right back at it against Green Bay. This is where things are really fun. It's also a massive opportunity to put ourselves in a really good spot when you're talking about the playoff picture. I haven't really pointed this out over here as much as I pointed it out on kind of the Bleacher Report show, but if you look at Philadelphia's schedule, we got to focus on our division first, absolutely. But if you look at that Philly schedule, if you just do a little peek, you can see that there's a lot of losable games. Again, I don't like doing that. I'm sure I'm not going to take Philly to lose all of their next 4 games, maybe a couple. But the point is, they could lose some. And we have an opportunity to potentially slide ourselves into a really good spot here these next few weeks. So that's the main story. But we're also going to dive back into this game as well, but not in today's video. We've done that in the past where on Monday I go back and I show specific key plays from the game. I think that's fantastic, but the issue is then I come back and do it all 22, and I feel like I've already covered a lot of those plays, and we're just replaying the same play, and I didn't want to do that. So I've been taking notes today on that game, rewatching it, but I'm going to save it for the all 22, just knock it out there, save it for its own separate video. And today, because this news came out today from the New England Patriots, I thought, hey, let's take a little look at this. And the reason why is because of the trade deadline. This was a position that had a lot of conversation within the Lions community. Should the Lions look to add a cornerback? And of course, they did not. They did not add a cornerback. I would also throw in this fact as well, that the one snap that Jerry Jacobs was not on the field in this last game where he had to come off and then he came back on, Khalil Dorsey stepped in for Jerry Jacobs for that one snap. But I think that was interesting because we know against Baltimore, they came into that game saying, hey, we're going to give Will Harris the nod here. Now, I really like Khalil Dorsey as a pure cover corner. I think he's a more natural outside cornerback than Will Harris, and that's mainly based on the preseason. So the issue with Khalil Dorsey is I just haven't seen a ton of it based in the regular season. I think he was our most consistent cornerback out of any cornerback in this year's preseason. Of course, Stephen Gilmore did some good things as well. We just haven't really seen him. So I like what we have specifically in a Khalil Dorsey, personally, based on what I've seen in the preseason. But again, that's preseason, and I don't know exactly how the Lions feel about him. Clearly, they felt good enough to throw him in immediately over Will Harris after the Baltimore game, but it's something to keep an eye on because, again, if the Lions are still looking to potentially add some depth, it's a little bit different because you're not getting a player that's going to be on a multi-year deal because he was just waived, but it is a young player. He's only 25 years old. He was a 4th-round pick in 2022 out of Arizona State, same college, coming out the same year as Chase Lucas, who was our 7th-round pick that year. We were at that draft. So same year, same draft class. I remember seeing Jack Jones go off the board, and then we came back and we took his teammate at the end of day 3. They took him early day 3. Maybe it was a little surprised that he went that early, but the point is he got off to a really promising start with the New England Patriots. And before we show some clips, just to start off in terms of the statistical side, I just want to start there and I'll throw some numbers your way. According to Pro Football Focus, 20 receptions allowed on 40 targets in his rookie season. That's 50%. He allowed a 63.1 pass rating, including 2 interceptions and a pick 6 against the Green Bay Packers that year. And then, of course, if you want to go down to like the grades, which I don't think you need to, but if you want to, I'll just throw them out there for reference. That season, he ranked in man coverage, according to PFF. 68.4 was his grade, which was 31st best of any cornerback in the league. To put that in perspective, Emmanuel Mosley came in ranked 32nd in man coverage in 2022. Though, again, it was a very small sample size for Emmanuel Mosley. The first 4 or 5 games, and then he was injured, but he played really well to that point in the season. So to just kind of put it into context, that's where he graded out as. And then in zone coverage, he was actually graded out even better, 76.4, allowing only 10 receptions on 17 targets and being graded as the 35th best corner in the National Football League in zone coverage. Now, that doesn't mean everything, but it's just to kind of put it into context. But this season, it hasn't went as well. Now, unfortunately for him, it started off with some off-the-field issues. And honestly, you can go back to college and point to off-the-field issues as well. The reason he went from USC to Arizona State was because back at USC, he was ruled academically ineligible in 2018, and then he was eventually dismissed from the school after breaking into a restaurant after hours course, pleading guilty to a second-degree misdemeanor charge of commercial burglary. Now, this season, the issue that popped up before the season, he was found with firearms in his luggage, so he also got caught there as well. And then this season, heading into the Washington game, because what really happened was starting this year, he ended up on IR with a hamstring injury. So when he got back to New England, he started to kind of mix in, kind of as a rotational corner. He's kind of been that the last 2 seasons, a rotational corner for the New England Patriots. But when he got back before the Washington Commanders game, reportedly late to curfew, him and JC Jackson, and because of that, he ultimately didn't really get snaps. He was essentially benched.
And honestly, when you look at a lot of this stuff from the outside looking in, I would assume these things alone would probably keep the Detroit Lions away from being interested. But again, the off the field stuff, the Lions will have a much better sense. They also have Chase Lucas, as I'll talk about a little bit in the building, that they can learn maybe a little bit from with Jack Jones if they were interested. And on top of that, they probably already have a lot of research done from that draft process on Jack Jones. But I think this stuff alone probably makes it unlikely, but I still want to talk about the player and just what I see on the field and not make this all about the off the field stuff.
And then in this past game that he played, he only played 10 snaps, and of course they have just waived him. So there's been a couple things off the field, which that alone could keep the Lions away from being interested in this. That would make sense. I would understand if that was the case. But they'll have a better grasp on all the off the field stuff, specifically having Chase Lucas in the building. I'm sure they got to know him pretty well when they were taking a look at Chase Lucas, and maybe they can get some information from him as well if they were really looking to do that. But when you watch him as a player, I'll go there because, again, I think this is a name that's pretty interesting because you look at the fact that he's only been in the league for 2 seasons because of such a promising start. Now, this season, statistically, it has not been the same. Again, according to PFF, he's allowed 8 receptions on 11 targets. His snap counts have come way down this year, allowing a 136.6 pass rating. He hasn't had an interception this year, so the stats are not the same. It's also a pretty small sample size, so that makes it difficult as well. But to really just focus on what I see in the player, because I think it's an interesting name, and if he is going to go through the waiver wire, of course, the Lions, because he was waived, the Lions are going to be really low on that list because they're currently 7-2 and we're beyond 3 games in the season. Then, of course, there's also the aspect that if no one claims him, he could become an unrestricted free agent. Lions could try to bring him in there as well, maybe even have like a practice squad piece if, again, they were someone they were interested in. I don't know that they're interested in this player at all. This is just a guy that I think is interesting because of how much we talked about the position heading into the trade deadline. You also keep in mind just having depth, specifically a guy that can play outside corner. That's mainly where he's played over the past 2 seasons. A guy that can play outside corner, that's kind of his primary position, that's also put good out there on film, and at the same time, he's young, so he's got that to him as well. Lions love to bring those guys in with upside as a young piece that could potentially earn himself a little bit of a longer contract, and again, for depth purposes. Coming into this video saying the Lions should sign him, here's why they should sign him. I'm not going to try to persuade you why they should sign him. I'm just going to simply tell you what I've seen from this player when I've watched him in about 6-7 games over the last 2 seasons with the New England Patriots, taking a look at some good games and some games that weren't so great. So we'll start there. First off, it stands out immediately is loose hips, man. Extremely loose hips, very fluid in the hips. It allows him to mirror match off coverage, off man coverage, zone coverage as well. Man coverage a little bit in press, but it's really about the loose hips, the fluidity that he has in his transition, kind of at the 2nd and 3rd level. 5'11", 171-pound corner is what he was listed at coming out of the draft. So he's a very light cornerback, has some height, but very light. And you'll see that pop up, specifically route strength. It really can show up in goal line situations. Even a lot of times when you don't see a lot of contact, you can see him get kind of pushed off a little bit. Route strength would be a little bit of an issue. Honestly, it's a similar kind of build to a guy like Cam Sutton. You know, if you wanted to put it into like, what does he look like? Kind of looks like Cam Sutton. There are things that I do like, specifically within the body control side of things. First off, his ability to play in off-man coverage, project and anticipate and jump on breaking routes, specifically a lot of times in breaking routes. He has a really good ability to anticipate, read body language. You saw it against the Green Bay Packers, the way that he was able to read that the receiver was rising. He was going to sit down into his break, and it allowed him to get time to anticipate, drive, and make an interception. Tied along with what he does with that is this is a ball-hawking cornerback that back in college had a lot of plays on the football, but also gave up a lot of touchdowns. And when you see him, I think, unfortunately, a lot of that in some ways, unfortunately, it's kind of carried into the NFL. Also, it leads to good as well. If you're looking for guys that are going to make plays on the football, he will do that. And you'll see that specifically in like a half-turn look where he's very aggressive to sit on top of the route, give himself an opportunity to dive, break again on an in-breaking route. What backfires is that he can really give up his blind spot. He could be attacked there. You saw it here against Miami. You get a great play where he's jumping an over route, and then you come back and you can see how well they kind of expose attacking his blind spot because of how far he's playing on top of this route, trying trying to stay in a position to dive down and make a play. I want to jump in here and talk a little bit about our partnership for this season with BetUS, a leading online betting platform offering a wide range of sports betting and casino games, from the most popular sports, basketball, baseball, of course football, that's the time right now, all the way to esports. Well known for their security, reliability, and customer service, which I had a great experience with firsthand, them reaching out to me because they didn't want me to miss out on a deal once I signed up. And it's very easy to sign up. Use that top link in the description. You deposit at least $100, you can get a 125% match. You click that link, it'll take you to a page where you click bet now, and in 3 pages you can be signed up with BetUS. There's also tons of different ways to bet with BetUS. Outside of casino games, if you want to go the sportsbook route, you can go to pre-game betting, whether that's over-unders, spreads. You can utilize prop bets, which we do shorts on now every week, some of the game props that I like for each upcoming Lions game, all the way to live betting and parlays, which are just a ton of fun, just to see what kind of crazy idea you can come up with. Features in there which I really like for example, the props builder, where you can build out a prop with a specific player. Maybe you think Khalif Raymond's going to have a big day. You can build out a player prop for that player, whether that's receptions or yards, maybe it's touchdowns. So have tons of different ongoing promotions available right now, whether you're a new customer or you're a existing customer that's just re-upping with BetUS. There's tons of different promotions that are available right now. My favorite parts of BetUS is their loyalty program. If you place wagers on BetUS, you can work your way up tiers on BetUS, earning different rewards such as bigger bonuses or welcome free play or free payouts, and utilize that top link in the description. I know a lot of you guys already bet during the NFL season, so if you want to follow along with the shorts that I make and maybe some of the bets that I like for the week, click that top link, sign up with BetUS. At very least, you don't even need to deposit money right away. You can just look around, just see what's kind of out there, just take a look at the website, but it's definitely worth doing, especially if you're already betting. Again, if you have any questions like customer service issues, they have an FAQ on their website that you can go to, or you can get into contact with them utilizing live chat, email, and phone support. So again, shout out to BetUS for supporting this channel, our partner for the NFL season, and let's get back to the video. One of the areas I was actually most impressed, and you know New England plays man coverage, you know that you got to be able to play man coverage, is in pure press coverage. This is an area I was very impressed within his game. I didn't anticipate this, but it's really about the balance. I think his technique stays really sound when he's pressed up, wide base consistently, and he has pretty good quickness when reacting laterally. So he has a real ability to play at the line of scrimmage, and that was something that stuck out with me. The ability to mirror match on the line of scrimmage was one of the more impressive traits of his game when I was watching him. Out the technique, he can get a little bit sloppy. The biggest thing to me is he starts to kind of stand up. He gets out of that kind of sitting down in his stance, staying balanced, being able to react. You'll get him kind of standing up and kind of lurking. You'll get some ugly reps like here against the Chicago Bears where you get a little bit of a whip route. I mean, this is bad. It turns into an interception, but this is not good. This is not good coverage by any means here, because there are occasions where his technique just looks all out of whack, and I think it gets down to a little bit more as a press corner, but you'll see it pop up like that.
For example, this would be a good rep against off-man coverage. You can see sitting inside leverage here. Now, he can get a little bit antsy in a lot of aspects, but here you see the fluidity to open the hips, swing with the receiver, mirror match, sit in front, and even when we talk about the route strength, that can pop up a lot of times in maybe a fade situation, but a lot of times it comes back to, man, what's that balance looking like? And here he's balanced, wide base, looks good, and he's able to stick with this route.
Now, his plant and drive ability, some of that explosiveness is a little bit average from an off-coverage position. I think he leans a lot more on anticipation and kind of projecting and anticipating like, yo, this ball might go here. Let me lean into that and get myself in a position where I know I can jump on the route. What I like about the football intelligence aspect, he does a pretty nice job, awareness, passing off in man coverage. He's got a lot of work at doing that. Something breaks inside, dropping back, getting depth when he needs to, passing it off to someone else, getting depth, finding himself in a passing lane.
The examples I really liked here against Washington, where he's aligned with the outside receiver in this bunch type of look, but he steps back to fake the screen, and he doesn't dive, but instead he picks up the outside release and he carries it vertically on this play. While I don't think his plant drive ability is extremely explosive, I do think that he has plus acceleration. You'll see it here again. You notice that he starts to lean on top of this route for that in-breaking route, the anticipation. And I do like his man coverage routes that he takes, the pass that he takes when he's in a position where he's in trail or to recover. I like the angles that he takes to recover in man coverage or play underneath and understand the leverage.
The downside is I think there's a lot of hit and miss in terms of following routes, playing motion in man coverage. You'll see him kind of bumping into rub routes. Well, as I like his transitions because he's so loose and fluid in the hips, I think he's a little bit clunky in the pedal. Specifically, you'll see this in off-man coverage. It's not very smooth to mirror match. So he can open, he's very loose, but it's pretty clunky. It doesn't look very smooth, the pedal to transition. It's not very smooth. There's not a lot of great there. And again, I think the technique can get a little bit out of sorts here and there. Some reps look way better than others. Some just don't look great at all. Speaking of that, ball skills, again, making plays on the football has been an area where he's been very effective throughout his entire career. And you can point to vertical route tree if he's playing zone or off coverage, seeing receivers towards the sideline, maintaining leverage, being able to squeeze at the top of the route. He does a really nice job with all of those things. He's got a little bit of a lurker mentality to him, which allows him to be a playmaker, though still in zone coverage, I do feel like you'll get kind of late jumps on the football. You get like a lurking vibe, specifically when he's able to play some of those high-low looks like a cover two underneath, kind of playing between two receivers. There's a real ability there to lurk, open his hips, transition, make plays on the football. The final point to that, as well as I think that he moves flexibility-wise, I would say that I don't think he has some of the foot quickness to match some of that. And you'll really see that like working some of the underneath routes, right? Sometimes his techniques looks a little bit clunky.
Here would be a good example. You can see he kind of jumps into that half turn look pretty quickly here on Diggs. And when he hesitates, he kind of matches with it. But then as he pushes vertical, you can see again, maybe some of that over aggressiveness, also maybe a little bit of lack of long speed, but he kind of pushes very hard on top to stay on top of this route. And Diggs is able to just sink and break back open to the middle of the field. And he creates a lot of separation. I also don't think his short area, short yardage, level 1 route tree foot quickness is elite. If anything, I think it's maybe a little bit more average.
I do like his ability to get in your face and press you off the line, but consistently sticking in phase underneath, the technique's got to be super sound, and I don't think he has elite foot quickness underneath either. I think where he seems to be at his best when he can play on top of route, off man sometimes, half turn, also being able to play deep zones, cover 4 quarters, he can sit down, drive. Even though the plant drive isn't awesome, he does play with really good anticipation. I really like him in zone coverage specifically. I think there's things that I like in man, but I don't love the whole aspect of his game there. But I also, what I would say is I like angles that he takes as well. Like when guys try to run away from him man coverage, he seemingly takes good angles. He can really stick in your hip pocket, and he can also take really good angles to get himself on top of the play and not be completely in a terrible position where he can't get back into the place.
Do see some real positives impressed. Lateral foot speed is there as well as balance, and here you can see he picks up the right matchup here. He's sitting outside leverage initially, but then as this receiver releases inside between the 2 other receivers, he picks it up, lateral quickness to stick in his hip pocket, and then he's able to run with the receiver with good acceleration throughout this route underneath. This is the kind of route you see a lot of cornerbacks can have issues with, where they kind of have that stutter released and they push vertically with a lot of quickness there. And you can see you love how he matches this. Again, maintains his leverage, good base width, the foot quickness matches on this play. And then that inside hand, you can see gets it in his chest, and he's just running in phase with this route. Now notice at the top when it sits down into the curl, he peeks back for the ball. You can see he kind of loses him a little bit late instead of plastering, but that's that ball hawking nature. He feels the route break, he's going to look for the football.
So I will say I like the angles that he takes, and when he can stick with you off the press, he doesn't have bad speed, so he's usually able to stick in your pocket. It's just not elite like recovery or makeup kind of speed. Now, outside of all of the coverage stuff, from what I've seen so far, as a run defender, I don't love him here. I wish I would have liked this a little bit more. I see an ability to read, specifically from zone, diagnose when screens are coming. There's anticipation, there's some aggressiveness to it, but there's problems specifically at the point of attack, getting off good receiving blockers, and we know the Lions have those, so at very least you would get good work with that against our receivers, you would think. All right, but that's an area where he is not great seemingly, and he wasn't really noted as someone that was great there in college either. And then also just too many missed tackles. You can see it here against Green Bay where he gives up the edge on the play. I think also some of it you can point to kind of what shows up occasionally in goal line man situations where I like him at the press, but at the same time you'll also get you'll catch him lunging a little bit, maybe being a little bit overly aggressive right off the line of scrimmage, putting himself in a bad spot, not playing with some of that patience. So overall, I think technique-wise, it can kind of be hit and miss when you watch him, but there's real good that's there. There's some beautiful plays, and there's some other ones that are like, yo, that was really ugly. But again, he's a young player. He was a day 3 pick, showed a lot of promise in his first season. He is a playmaker on the football. He has a lot of experience as an outside corner, played a lot of man coverage, and obviously we see that we're playing a lot more zone this year, though I like him even more in zone coverage. Having that experience could be helpful because there's certain matchups like last week where he might lean into man a little bit heavier. This could give the Lions Lions some legitimate depth at outside corner just to see what's there, and they wouldn't have to give up a draft pick to do so, which is great. The only thing would be giving him a contract. That's really the only thing that would come into play here. And again, if he goes to the waiver wire, maybe the Lions put out a claim. Maybe they land him, maybe they don't because of how late they would be in that waiver wire. I believe it's 24 hours. I believe teams get 24 hours to place those, and because he was released today, like by the time I'm recording this, like 6 hours ago, I think there's going to be time for the Lions to potentially place that waiver wire claim, and maybe they could add him if they were interested. And if not, he'll be a UFA, unrestricted free agent, so they could always try to add him there. Maybe they want to try to throw him on the practice squad or something. But the point is, should the Lions be interested? I think you should be interested because I do think there's talent here, and he's already put good film out there, and he's shown there's versatility within his game. I think the off-the-field stuff, they're going to be way better suited to evaluate that than I am. It's not great, and if you ask me to say, do I think the Lions would sign this guy, I would say no. If I was a betting man, I would say no. I don't think the Lions put out a claim. I think they like Khalil Dorsey. If they like him like I like him based on the preseason and they're buying into that, I don't think this is necessary that they go make this move. But if they don't feel maybe super confident in what they have there, and that the fact that they went from Will to Dorsey with that last snap in this past game, the Lions could be saying, you know what, this is a free way to essentially add a piece to this roster outside of giving up some cap space. And of course, then you're going to have to move someone. If you picked up a waiver claim, you're going to have to cut somebody, put someone on IR, pick up some salary cap, which would go into effect maybe later down the road, or potentially what could potentially roll over into next season. So I think there's a lot of little things like that go into it. So I would assume the Lions would not be interested in this. I would have interest. If I was the Lions, I would have interest in the player, but I would assume that the Lions are not going to go after this player. Though I do think there's things to like in his game, but I think it's an interesting option. Obviously, we did this with Josh Reynolds. We were in a very dire situation at receiver when we did that. That guy already had a connection, and we just needed a dang receiver. So that one worked out perfectly for us. Could this be the same? Maybe. Who knows? There's talent there. So let me know what y'all think. I just thought I'd bring it to you, change it up a little bit this week. I thought it was an interesting news. And again, they have a great guy to go through here, I think, at Chase Lucas, and probably all the preparation for Chase Lucas. They probably know a lot about Jack Jones and how they feel about him.
BetUS, America's favorite sports book, where you can bet on everything anytime. Sportsbook, casino, horse racing, live betting, and more. We have the best bonuses in the industry. That's right, get a 125% sign-up bonus. And to celebrate our 30-year anniversary, we are giving up to 30 risk-free bets, a truck, Super Bowl tickets, and more. Don't miss out. Play smart. Join now. BetUS, where the game begins.
They're giving away a truck, dog. A truck? Super Bowl tickets? I mean, hold up. Super Bowl tickets? They must already know what time it is. That's all I'm going to say right now. I had a friend text me, Browns fan, and he was like, yo, this could be the year. This could be the year. Lions-Browns Super Bowl. And I'm like, hold up. At first, you always want to laugh at that. But then you think about it, you're like, wait a second. He could be on to something. This could be the year. As always, want to give a shout out to BetUS, man. Use that top link in the description. Or go to betus.com/DoseOfDion. And like my man said, get 125% match. You deposit at least $100, man. Want to give a shout out to them. I appreciate y'all watching. And I'll see y'all a little bit later this week. I'm out.